Who would you say is the early favourite out of the traps? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but Rishi Sunak is collecting numbers like they're going out of fashion.
Yeah, of course, at the beginning of the leadership contest, it matters about, how many MPs nominate the candidate, and Rishi Sunak is sort of really the front runner when it comes to that. It kind of depends what happens, though, because the 1922 committee will meet tomorrow. They could change their rules to make it so that the grassroots Tory membership won't actually vote on the last two candidates, and it could be up to MPs. The problem is, at the moment, I think, is that there is far too many people running, and we have until Tuesday people to declare. There could be even more by then. I think, frankly, the public are a bit frazzled because many of these people who don't follow the intricacies of political, day-by-day news may not be aware of them, and that's not their fault. It's just because they have, actual lives, and their job isn't like mine. They don't have to pay attention to these things. I think, in terms of the favourite, I mean, Penny Mordaunt is fairly popular with the grassroots. Rishi Sunak was, but that's plummeted over time after his party ate fine. Also, just the cost of living crisis. I think that, we saw a snap poll a few days ago when he was pulled out as one of the only candidates, or in fact the only candidate, though obviously they didn't run all of them in the poll because they had declared by then, who would win against Keir Starmer in an election. But if this happens in 2 years' time, the cost of living crisis has got worse, and we don't know how Sunak would perform in number 10, it's not a given that he would win a general election. I think that's not the thing to bet on necessarily.
No, indeed. And it is the case, you are right, it's a bit of a poisoned chalice, actually, right? Whoever picks that up, they might have won the top job in all of the land, but they're going to have one hell of a task facing them as far as the economic picture's concerned. Isn't that right, Emily?
Yes, certainly. It's quite interesting. We've suddenly got all these Tory frontrunners who are suddenly massive free marketeers, have always been committed to a smaller state, less public spending and lower taxes. I would have liked to have seen a little more of that pressure towards the Prime Minister and the Chancellor over the last few years. I'd just like to come back on what you said, Darren, in your monologue, because I think it is shocking how some commentators have tried to discredit some of the black and ethnic minority competitors in this race. The way Dr. Shola, I believe her name is, spoke about Kemi Badenoch was disgusting, disowning her, discrediting her as a black woman, saying that she's legitimising white supremacy and such things. That is a disgusting thing to say. Kemi Badenoch is simply giving her view, her strongly held view from what I can say. And I do think she should be one of the front runners, although I would say that she may be ever so slightly inexperienced compared to some of the other forerunners. I would say on Rishi Sunak, though, I do think that perhaps he's a little too tarnished. Whatever your views on his wealth, it is true that it has come up time and time again that he is, or may be, out of touch, and we'll have to see how that plays with the grassroots and also the general public.
Yeah, Georgia, before I bring Alice in, I just wanted to ask you, the 1922 committee, they're going to have to get a grip of this, aren't they? Otherwise, it's going to start to look like there's a sale on at Primark. There'll be that many numbers of people standing for the leadership.
Yeah, possibly. So the Telegraph, I believe, reported this morning that they could change the number of MPs who need to nominate a candidate for them to go forward to 35. Currently, it's 8. So if, let's say, nothing changes before Tuesday radically, that would leave Jeremy Hunt, it would leave Liz Truss, it would leave Penny Mordaunt and Rishi Sunak as the people who would be going forward in that leadership race. And yes, I think people are keen to get this over with because the way it's standing, this could last for 2 months or it could last for 2 weeks. And I know which one everyone would prefer after the past few days.
Indeed. Alice, then, bringing you in, I assume you agreed with everything that Emily said, but who are you personally thinking should make a run for it?
Yes, that's a difficult one. I think everything said about Rishi Sunak so far has been spot on. The next Prime Minister must be extremely economically adept. He or she will have a massive task on their hands trying to curb inflation and also trying to fix the cost of living crisis, soaring fuel costs, and various other serious issues that we're facing right now in our country. And sadly, Rishi Sunak has proven himself to be highly inadequate at economic policy, as his role as head of the Treasury has been seen as Chancellor. So I think that I will be backing anyone who is a committed Brexiteer, first and foremost, because what we need right now, more than ever, is someone to stand by that Brexit mandate firmly and strongly, especially since we've heard a lot of voices, not only from EU politicians and bureaucrats, but also in this country. Many people are seeing this as an opportunity to turn the Brexit vote, perhaps, especially if we have a Remainer Prime Minister installed, which would be very, very bad, especially since we know that Boris was elected on that Get Brexit Done mandate. So someone who stands firmly on Brexit will hopefully get my support. And also, I think it's very necessary right now that, yes, we have someone who's prepared to look at the net zero agenda
on that
and to really question whether 2050 targets are reasonable and are possible. And perhaps, let's be realistic about this. And are these targets affordable for the British people right now who are struggling so much with the cost of living?
Well, this is true. I mean, I know people in the northeast that are genuinely having to choose now between heating or eating, and that's going to get worse come October when the energy price cap is lifted to even more extortionate prices. But, Alice, I'm wondering, what did you make of Jeremy Hunt's announcement this morning that as his Deputy Prime Minister, he would be choosing a Brexit candidate in GBNews' very own Esther McVey?
Well, I'm here to support anyone who's going to be behind Brexit, but also I think we need to look at also the politicians here who are just using this to kind of seize the opportunity to advance themselves politically. And people like Jeremy Hunt, Rishi Sunak, Nadine Zawahi, Grant Shapps, Tom Tugendhat and Sajid Javid, I think are very much politicians who are just ruthlessly advancing themselves in their own careers here, especially when we look at Rishi's campaign, which was suspiciously thought through and clearly well rehearsed, released only 2 days or so after the Prime Minister announced his resignation. I think that the British people and Conservative members are going to get behind someone who they genuinely feel is in politics for a reason, and specifically to change things for our nation and to actually start listening to the people, and to someone who has a vision for Britain, which we can all get behind. That is what I want to see as a Conservative member right now, and I'm sure many people would be agreed with me that, for too long, a country has been in this managed decline. We want someone who is truly patriotic and has that kind of, a zeal to want to change things for the better right now, because we really do need that. So,
one person, Emily, that we haven't mentioned is Suella Braverman. I nearly said Fernandez. That was before she got married. Braverman, Suella Braverman. We saw Tom Tugendhat on this very channel earlier today, and his manifesto is basically one that purports to be one of change, right? Do you think someone like Suella, who's offering she's talking more about actually we need to challenge the regulatory state? I don't know about you, Emily, but that sort of thing is music to my ears. No Tory saying that sort of thing anymore.
Yeah, it is nice to hear. And that's something we also heard from Kemi Badenoch in her article for The Times, where she set out her pitch. She was very much talking about how we're constantly adding more regulations, how the online safety bill, for example, is going to be essentially criminalising offensive speech or bad jokes. I can't remember what she wrote exactly, but she very much had her finger on the pulse when it comes to over-regulation. And hearing that from Suella and from other candidates is music to many Conservatives' ears, I'm sure. We want free markets, we want free people, and, we want more money in people's hands at the end of the day, in their pockets. So any Conservative front-runner here who can make that pitch and people will actually believe them, he or she, then they're going to have a good go at it, I think. But yes, I think net zero and also migration, which Tom was talking about, a lot of Conservative voters are at their wits' end when they see tens of thousands of migrants coming across the channel. That does need to be sorted out.
It's true. I mean, levelling up, right? I did not vote for the immiseration of the working class, which is what net zero, or net stupid in my view, would actually lead to.